Let me begin with a question. What is nature? Pause and think about it. Not like a textbook definition, but personally, what does the word mean to you? Do you see trees, rivers, mountains, wild animals? Well, that's valid. You will see these things. But let me tweak the question a little bit. Where do you fit in that picture? Are you in it, or are you watching it from the outside? Well, most of us grow up thinking of ourselves separate from the nature. We live in concrete homes, we scroll on screens, we drive cars once in a while. Sometimes, once in a while we go to nature on a trek or a vacation, or maybe even YouTube meditation videos. But this separation is not new. Historically, especially in India, people saw nature as something that they were within, not above or outside of. Namaste, my name is Yugang Goyal, and today we're going to talk about that worldview. We'll explore how India's agricultural traditions, festivals, social practices, they show us a radically different way to live with nature, not as its master, but as its participant. Let me ask you something. So you've heard of Pongal? Do you know when it happens? Pongal, Bihu, Makar Sankranti, Lohri? Most of us know the names, right? Some of us even celebrate them. But here's something that most of us miss. Across Tamil Nadu, Assam, Punjab, Bengal, and many other regions, these festivals, different as they sound, different as they're celebrated, they're all harvest festivals. And that's not a coincidence. India's cultural calendar wasn't built by pandits in temples or kings in palaces. It was built by farmers, by seasons, by the soil itself. It's not January 1st, it's Ugadi, Gudi Padwa, Vaishakhi. It's a time when crops are in, when the land has given, when it's time to say thank you. Let me paint a scene for you. In Tamil Nadu, during Pongal, the very first rice of the harvest is boiled in milk until it overflows. The moment it bubbles over, people cheer, Pongalo Pongal. And before a single bite is taken, the first spoonful is offered to the sun, the one who made it all grow. That's a pattern you'll see again and again. And these are not just food festivals, these are ecological rituals. You are ritually remembering where your food comes from. And what happens after the harvest? You celebrate, of course, but not alone. Across Bharata, harvest time is also when Annadan, the gift of food, reaches its peak. In Tamil Nadu, there's a practice called Kanum Pongal, where families make elaborate meals and carry them to riversides or temples to share. In northern India, Bhandaras, open kitchens, they serve anyone who walks in, rich or poor, traveler, local. No one asks who you are. In eastern part, like in Nagaland, for instance, during Mautsu festival, the festival is followed by days of dancing, feasting, but also community repair. Houses are fixed, disputes are resolved. People remember they're part of something bigger than themselves. Let's reflect that for a second. In modern cities, food is consumption, but in these traditions, food is connection. You cook together, eat together, feed others. That's how gratitude becomes action. And here's a deeper layer. India's agriculture tradition didn't just revolve around crops. They revolved around time, but not mechanical time, not clocks or calendars. They followed natural time, based on the movement of the sun, the moon, the rains, the flowering or trees, migration of birds. In fact, across India, many farming communities followed their own Krishi Panchangs, the agricultural calendars. These calendars tracked when to plow, when to sow, when to irrigate, when not to disturb the land at all. When should the animals be resting, and when festivals should take place. The year wasn't divided in quarters or fiscal seasons. It was divided by cycles of land and sky. What you see here is how Lokek Prayojana was at the core of how people did things, and how there was a certain logic, there was an understanding behind what may seem like a traditional or ritual solely. Let's take a powerful example, the Krishi Gita. The Krishi Gita, it's an ancient Sanskrit agricultural text written in a verse form, and it's structured like a dialogue between a guru and a disciple. And in this dialogue, the guru teaches not just how to farm, but when, why, and with what attitude. One section says, quote, "Observe the Rohini Nakshatra. When the moon passes through it and the soil breathes easily, sow your seeds. But if the sky is silent and birds do not return, wait. The earth is not ready." Unquote. Now think about that. This is farming based on observation, not instruction. You listen to the land. You feel an intuitive sense that you're connected to it. You look at the sky, you wait, you don't force. And this was true across languages, across regions. In Maharashtra, farmers used Sheti Panchang, which tracked the local rainfall, temperature shifts, moon phases, and all these things advised accordingly. It even had sections on when to avoid plowing, because the worms would be nesting. In Bengal, the Barsha Baran Utsav, the welcoming of monsoon, that is celebrated with songs and poems. Fields are left open, people sing in praise of the first rains. And so many Indian festivals, if you start noticing, are placed at key ecological moments. Makar Sankranti marks the end of winter solstice or the beginning of a longer, warmer days, the perfect time to begin clearing the fields. Baisakhi is when wheat is harvested in Punjab and also the New Year. Nuakhai in Odisha is celebrated new food. It was literally called new food, right? The day when the first grain is offered to the Bhagwan before being consumed. Onam in Kerala, that's tied to the rice harvest and also to the flooding cycle of the rivers. Let's go further. In many parts of India, before the soil is tilled, the farmer does a small gesture. It may seem simple, but it's just touching the soil, placing a drop of turmeric and water, lighting a small lamp. In local traditions of Jharkhand, for example, before any farming practice begins, the whole village gathers for a ceremony called Sarhul. Offerings are made to Sal tree. This moment marks the season of flowering, the start of agriculture cycle. The community is seeking permission from nature before they begin sowing. Just imagine that. Seeking permission from the land before using it. Compare that to modern practices where land is bulldozed, flattened, commodified. We don't ask, we just extract. In traditional Indian farming, the whole thing begins with relationship, not control. That's not the idea. When you see land as alive, you treat it differently. You don't over-fertilize, you let it rest, you rotate crops, you grow for need, not for greed. But let's clear something up. People often assume that traditional farming was quote-unquote unscientific, that farmers waited for luck or prayed for rain. They observed, nothing could be farther from falsehood. Farmers observed, they calculated, they tested. Take Rishi Parashar. Written over 500 years ago, it talks about how to read the sky. Clouds like Avarta, Pushkara, Drona, each linked to the kind of rainfall. It describes when to sow based on stars like Uttarashad or Mula. Or take Vriksha Ayurveda, written around 1000 CE, talks about diagnosing plant illness using balanced principles. Vat, Pitta, Kapha. It also recommends formulations like Nupajal, Amrit Pani, made using cow dung, plant remains, and jaggery. Organic before the word organic existed. And these aren't dead texts. Farmers in Nagaland still practice alder-based farming. The plants that restore soil nutrients. It's a living science. Farmers all around the country, knowingly, unknowingly, are following many of these practices. Let's take a moment now to talk about animals in Indian farming life. In many parts of Bharat, animals aren't in the background. They're right in the middle of the things. A cow isn't just there for milk. Her dung is used to plaster the floors, fuel for cooking fires, fertilize crops even. Bulls are trained to work in the field, pull carts, carry loads. Goats and chickens provide food, but they also help manage waste and enrich the soil. They're part of a daily routine. People grow up learning how to feed them, clean their shelters, understand their behavior. If the bull seems tired, it's noticed. If the cow eats less, someone is going to bring it up before breakfast. And care isn't limited to emergencies. Across regions, there are set days just for tending to animals. In Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Pola is celebrated so bulls can rest. They are bathed, decorated, and fed special food. No one works that day, not the animals, not the farmers. It's built into the calendar. That kind of care isn't extra. It's expected. Because the animals are part of your work, they're part of your responsibility. There is a symbiotic relationship that we have with nature. And that's the underlying statement. The way of thinking also shows up all kinds of places. Before sowing begins, many farmers offer food and water to animals first. During harvest, animals are never forgotten. They're part of the cycle, season to season, year to year. And this isn't limited, by the way, to one region or one group. Whereas Karnataka, Odisha, Gujarat, Assam, you'll find this basic idea. You don't work alone, you don't benefit alone either. And that's the thinking behind this Jivan Darshana. The land, animals, people, all part of one system. And for it to work, everything needs to be cared for. And that's how it has always been. And that's why it continues to hold together. So here's something really important to remember as we wrap up this specific section. What we've been thinking about, this way of learning from land, the animals and seasons, this is indeed part of our Gyan Parampara. And here's the big idea. Humans and nature aren't separate. They're connected. They're part of the same family. The trees, the rivers, the animals, the soil and us, we're all dependent on each other. We share respect, care and even love. Think about it. When farmers take care of their land and animals, they're really taking care of themselves and their community too. It's not about controlling nature or using it. It's about living with it, paying attention and giving back. So next time when you hear the word nature, don't think of something far away or separate from you. It's right here. It's part of who we are. You and I are nature. We're going to explore these ideas and even more in the next modules, in the next segments of this module, diving deeper into how this connection shapes the way people live, celebrate, and learn together. See you in the next segment. Namaste.